but Gerardo, before I let you go to the other two, Trump has hit the ground ferociously hard this time round, and it looks to me like a guy who, for two reasons, feels he's had a new lease of life. One, quite literally, because he nearly died in an assassination attempt, and in fact there were two attempts on his life in the space of a few weeks, but one where he was hit on the ear, came half an inch away from death. And secondly, that as a president, he's got another go at it, and he's had 4 years to sit in the wilderness and think about what he got right, what he got wrong. And it seems to me that this time round, fueled by the fact that he survived the assassin's bullet, he's just decided to go for it. And he's going to do all the things that he wanted to do, perhaps regretted not doing quickly enough first time, while he's got the first 2 years in particular of this extraordinary, overwhelming mandate. I just get a sense of a guy, as we would say over here, with his gander up, who's going for it full tilt. And it's, whatever people think of what he's doing, and I'm sure not all the panelists are going to agree that it's all a force for good, it's certainly incredibly exciting to watch.
Well, in terms of me personally and the relationship I had with Donald Trump, I fell in love with him all over again in that defiant way that he survived the assassin's bullet and never lost his composure, clenched his fist. He was like a superhero, and I thought that he really behaved magnificently. In terms of him getting his gander up, my goodness, look what he did in Gaza, for example. A very, very difficult situation that it seemed the parties were content to bloody each other, and the civilian death toll mounting, et cetera. Israel defiant. I thought that he did a magnificent job, Trump, in getting the parties to the table in Gaza and finally getting a ceasefire in that awful bloodbath of a region. You mentioned the Colombian president. He was, again, the third time we used the word defiant. The Colombian president was defiant and said to the American president, I'm not taking that plane load of Colombian migrants, undocumented migrants. Forget about it. You're sending them in American military aircraft. Their hands are bound. Their feet are bound on the plane. I'm not taking them. It's undignified. But Trump said, if you're not taking them, I'm going to close the embassy in Bogota. I'm going to, not issue visas to any of your VIPs. Colombia is one of those countries where the rich kind of commute back and forth between the United States and Colombia, very often having dual residences. So it was something that he struck a chord, to say the least. The Colombian president caved, and there you have it. I think that Trump is on a roll. He's got the full might and majesty of the American, economic engine behind him. He has, this wicked tariff he could throw on anybody at any time. I think that, I would not, if I were a foreign leader, get in his way right now, Piers. I think that he's on a roll.
Well, Jojo, I saw that you were, in fact, you were called stony-faced is how I would categorize your expression there. Welcome to Uncensored. Great to have you here. You made a big name for yourself in the last year, so it's exciting to have you. I don't think you feel he's quite on the roll in the euphoric way that Geraldo does. Am I right in picking up the rather more negative vibes?
Well, thank you for having me on. And yeah, no, you're definitely picking up what I'm laying down. But I wanted to start with, Piers, your comment about Donald Trump's achievement in installing a Diet Coke button in the Resolute desk, because I'm old-fashioned, I guess, and my barometer for achievement is maybe not leaving office, saddling our economy with the third largest debt relative to the size of our economy of any president in our history. But I mean, maybe you measure success differently. And I just wanted to also mention, Geraldo, yeah, you're right about it being exciting. Someone mentioned something about this being exciting, but I'm old enough to know and grew up in the tri-state area that sometimes exciting things also yield nothing, like, a vault being opened on live TV or something like that, where you can get a lot of excitement and drum it up. And then ultimately, it reveals nothing. I mean, I'm just old enough to remember that. Oh, look, Geraldo, I all due respect, I did grow up with you on TV, and everyone remembers that sort of infamously, well, I don't know how to, I won't say it was a failure, but let's just say infamous event. But you mentioned that he has a mandate, and I wanted to. Oh, look,
Yeah,
I mean, we
it was.
watched it, right? It was amazing. It's now become a punchline and a running joke, in all due respect. You know, we all build our careers the way we do. But you mentioned that he has a mandate, and I wanted to touch on that because he did not win the majority of the popular vote. He has a plurality of the popular vote. There are more people in this country who didn't vote for him than did. So none of that is a mandate by any stretch of the imagination.
Hang on. Putting aside your very quick, sly whack at Geraldo, who's far too gentlemanly, I'm sure, to respond.
Whack at Geraldo.
But putting that aside, actually, Trump does have an undeniable, incredible mandate. He won the Electoral College, the popular vote, the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. It is what is called in politics a clean sweep. And you on the left, with all due respect,
he's also lost all of those things. The first one to ever do that, Piers. He's also lost all of those things. The first one to ever do that.
But at some point, I think in the process of Democrats trying to somehow regain some credibility, you are going to have to just accept you've got a complete shellacking. You're just going to have to. And then you're going to have to work out how you're going to somehow get back at Trump in a way that doesn't involve just endless screaming. As we're speaking, Selena Gomez, right? I'm going to play you a clip. This is exactly what I'm talking about the kind of ludicrous hysteria that the left seem to specialize in, fueled by liberal celebrities, that they think works for the public, but actually makes the public laugh at them. Selena Gomez has decided that the correct response to, so far, a bunch of illegal immigrant criminals, including some despicable people, by the way, with despicable crimes, have been deported, that this is the correct response. Let's take a look.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. They don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
Now, there's a lot to unpack there, but you should know that she almost immediately deleted it because the instant reaction from Americans was to absolutely ridicule this absurdly narcissistic response from somebody trying to make this all about her, weeping for people, in some cases I've seen, rapists and murderers. What is she crying about?
In some cases, like right here in my state, it was a U.S. citizen and veteran, Piers, that was also detained without a warrant at his place of work. So, I mean, if you want to talk about the rapists and criminals that are being detained, but you're just going to not refer to those situations as well, we're not really painting a full picture. And I want to just stop really quickly on the emotion that she expressed there. We are traumatizing our society as we speak. We are traumatizing our children. There are kids in my town where I live. My kids are almost 12 and 15 years old, and they ask me every day. My friends want to know when their parents are going to be taken, and will they have to go too? And if they don't go, who will take care of them? There was a video that went around my town last night that children here thought was real of ICE coming and taking kids out of their homes.
So let me ask you. Let me ask you. Okay, Jojo, let me ask you. So do you believe then that it is entirely correct and proper that illegal immigrants who've entered the country illegally and are then criminals who've broken the law, that they should be allowed to stay? And what about the million people who've already been processed for deportation under the Biden administration but weren't actually deported? Would you keep them as well? In other words, for you, is there no limit to what people can do? They can come in illegally, they can break the law with impunity, they can be processed for deportation, but still you want to keep them in America. Well, what are you saying? It's important to clarify it.
Well, I never said that, but I never said that at all. In fact, I will say that, first of all, my father was an immigrant who came here lawfully from Lebanon, worked for 50 years for the Department of Defense, believed in the shining city on a hill. I would also say that if we're going to have that converse, I believe that, by the way, there is much reform to be made to the immigration process in this country. If I were an expert on that, I'd have a very different job. I'm not. I will say that it needs to be done and needs to be addressed. But if we're going to have the conversation about consequences and rule of law, then we need to have that conversation about about somebody sitting on your panel right now who was a January 6th insurrectionist and was pardoned for his crimes. So if you're going to thread the needle on what is acceptable in terms of allowing crime and what is not acceptable in terms of allowing crime, or forgivable in terms of allowing crime because of the color of someone's skin or the status of their citizenship, then I don't think this is a conversation about the rule of law at all.
Okay, but just to be clear, because you haven't answered the question, would you let illegal immigrants who break the law
Do I think that people should be able to? No, I don't. I don't think anyone should be able to break the law in this country and have no consequences for it. I do think that there are other ways to handle immigration rather than rounding people up in their elementary schools or going to their places of work or showing up at the groves where they're picking the citrus fruit that none of us will pick. And so that whole thing that is, that we don't even have half the citrus crops we used to have because no one will pick it. Do I think that they should be able to commit crimes willy-nilly? No, I don't think anybody in this country should be able to do that. But do I think dehumanizing them by putting it on TV with Dr. effing Phil is the way to do it? No. We've seen this playbook before, Piers. Everyone on this panel knows we've seen this playbook before. This is how you dehumanize people so that you can get clear the path towards atrocity. Okay, and I'm not on board with that.
Let me ask you my favorite. All right, before I go to Brandon to respond, do you know my favorite question for my liberal friends is who was the biggest deporter of them all? Who deported more illegal immigrants than any president in history, pro rata, per year?
You're going to say Barack Obama, right? You're going to say Barack Obama.
Well, yeah, but I'm not saying it for any reason other than it is Barack Obama. He deported over 3 million illegal immigrants in 8 years.
Did he have Dr. Phil do it on TV?
I don't really care whether Dr. Phil's there or not. My point is the greatest deporter of all, the man who earned the moniker of deporter in chief in Mexico, was actually a Democrat president, Barack Obama. And I don't remember people like you screaming about how inhumane it all was when that was going on. In fact, most liberals I know have no idea, A, that he deported 3 million people, or B, that he was the deporter in chief.
Why?
Anyway, I mean,
because he didn't turn it into a reality show,
he was a Democrat.
He basically wasn't designed to dehumanize them. Because he didn't make it into a prop and cops and reality TV. It wasn't the Hunger Games or Running Man. That's why. You don't think this is dehumanizing them, Piers? Do you support that? Let me ask you a question, Piers. Do you support them being dehumanized? I think when you try and say that nobody, I think when you, no, I don't agree with anyone being dehumanized, but I do agree with illegal immigrants. That's what's happening, is it not?
In any country being thrown out, yeah. Because by the way, I have to go through a very vigorous process. Well, unfortunately for you, I ask the questions. But my point is that people like me who want to work in America or live in America have to go through a very laborious legal process. Everyone knows that. And when we ultimately get our visas, we're called illegal aliens. So, when it comes to dehumanizing, you can sort the language out on that to start with. Let me go to Brandon. Brandon. I mean, it was interesting there that Jojo, she's so far whacked Geraldo ad hominem, and she's gone for you as well. Just to remind people who may not know, what was your crime for which you were convicted on January 6th?
Right. Well, a few points that I think are important to let your audience know. Number one, I never entered the Capitol on January 6th. I stood outside of the east side of the building for 8 minutes shooting a video. I didn't engage in any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction, nor did I witness any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction. Nobody was rioting on the side of the building that I was on. I stood outside of the building for 8 minutes shooting a video of people walking through the open doors of the Capitol, and then I uploaded that video to Twitter. And because of that, 2.5 weeks later, I was raided by the FBI, put in handcuffs and taken to jail and charged with numerous felony charges by the Biden DOJ, and ultimately took a misdemeanor plea deal. I'd love to ask JoJo why she's so traumatized by people who come into our country illegally who get removed, but not so traumatized when people who trespass on the Capitol grounds are raided by the FBI and thrown in jail. Why are those raids not upsetting to you?
Yeah, good question.
Are you actually asking me a question? Let me just tell you, Brandon, first of all, let me ask you a question. Didn't you participate with the Department of Justice to give them information on other people who were there and attacked the Capitol on January 6th, and then you tried to walk that back and said, well, actually, that's not what I said, until you're chastised by a judge who said, which is it, because you're getting into a little bit of problem here where you look like you lied in your plea deal? You didn't do that? You didn't cooperate with them at all?
So I sat down with the DOJ, as every person who took a plea deal did. That was a requirement of every January 6th defendant who got a plea deal. The difference is I happen to be somebody who was well known before January 6th. So the media had a vested interest in trying to destroy my name and reputation. So they leaked my documents to the media. But what the documents showed was that nobody that I was asked questions about was ever accused of a crime, charged with a crime, or convicted of a crime. So I think to be able to inform on someone, you need to actually help somebody get charged or convicted. None of the people I was asked questions about were ever charged or convicted with a crime.
Interesting.
And then
Geraldo,
a representative of yours was chastised in court for that.
Hang on, Jojo. I'm going to move to Geraldo.
Yeah, my judge is a lunatic.
6th,
my judge is a lunatic.
Okay.
Oh, there
Geraldo,
it is.
with hang on, let me get to Geraldo. Geraldo, on January 6th and the pardons, I got to say I'm more in the JD Vance camp. I thought it was absolutely fine to pardon all the peaceful protesters, including our panelist today, Brandon. I think a lot of them have served quite lengthy prison sentences, probably longer than they would have done had they been doing a similar kind of protest somewhere else. But the ones who were violent towards police, I had a big problem with them being pardoned in the way that they were. Did you?
Well, I think that's a middle of the road position. I have no problem with it, Piers. I think that there is a difference between protesters who were peaceful and those who destroyed the building, or especially those who assaulted cops. But I am less offended by it than you might expect, because I think that the whole pardon process is outrageous. It dates back to the days, with due respect, of the monarchy, where the monarch could do whatever the monarch wanted. And I think when without common law, and later, the good old days before 1776 and then after, we adopted that that power for our monarch, our president, and gave him almost, he or she, presumably someday she, had the power to do whatever they wanted when it came to pardon. They have absolute power, unlimited power. The fact that Trump pardoned them all, I think, was rash, and I don't think it helped his personal standing, his reputation. But he did it, and he had the absolute constitutional power to do it. No one denies that. I think that it is unfortunate. I do want, if I may, Piers, to talk about these raids, because we had a raid here in the neighborhood, here in Cleveland, Ohio, where the Mexican restaurant in the neighborhood, 3 people, we are told by our neighbors, were summarily arrested by ICE last night. I think that these are real. And I also think this about these raids in the current, this phase of war on illegal aliens, undocumented immigrants. This is the easy part. The easy part is the people that you described in your opening monologue, the heinous criminals, the violent people, the rapists, the murderers, and so forth. Those are the easy ones. The ICE knows where they are. Largely, many of them have monitors. They're going to be scooped up and they're going to be taken away, and whether they go in handcuffs or not is not my concern. What I'm concerned about is the babysitters and the house cleaners and the fruit pickers. I wrote a couple of books about immigration and how it is I think the strength of the American Republic, that we have these broad shoulders when so many European countries are losing population. I'm distressed by it. I think that it is, but it is what America voted for. Sadly, I voted for Kamala Harris, but the people that voted for Donald Trump largely did it either because of transsexual and transgender and that kind of progressive woke stuff. And the other issue was undocumented immigration. And it struck a chord with the American people, the majority of the American people. Not with me, but I'm not in the majority, certainly not on this particular issue. And I think that the worst is yet to come. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to get horrible when they start taking little screaming Jose and Maria out of third grade to be with their parents and their classmates to see it and are traumatized by it. I think it's going to be, there's going to be hell to pay. Even if there's not hell to pay, I think it'll be a scar in our national psyche, and I lament it. But I understand it is what America voted for. When they voted for Trump, they gave him the pardon power. I hope this gentleman takes advantage of this the second chance he's gotten in his life and makes the best of it. I did not vote for Donald Trump, and I broke off my friendship with him because of January 6th.
Yeah. I was very scathing about him on January the 6th, but I'm friendly with him again. And it's been a remarkable thing to watch his comeback. Jojo, I want to talk about DEI. Seems to me now to be DIA or DOA, isn't it? Dead on arrival. Because Pete Hegseth, the new defense secretary, has immediately ordered that all DEI stuff be removed from the Pentagon. They're basically de-woking the military. And most Americans I've spoken to bang up for this. They think it was ridiculous it ever got woked up in the first place. Do you think that along with DEI, that woke is dead? It's over for the wokies?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to talk about, just to pick up on something Geraldo said about the pardon. I agree with him 100% that Donald Trump was well within his constitutional right to do whatever he wanted with the pardon. I think we should find a way to reform the pardon in this country. I don't believe we should have a monarch who has any power that is uncheckable. I think, again, Joe Biden was roundly criticized for his choices to pardon the people that he did. But ironically, again, he was well within his constitutional right to do that. And in Donald Trump's case, just because you can does not mean you should. And pardoning those people who did beat our police officers that day, some of which are my very good friends, pardoning them sends the wrong message to everyone in the country. And I just also wanted to say, in terms of what the American people voted,
many of them were attacked
I'm sorry, in terms of what the American people voted for. I'm sorry,
Jojo,
when you're done interrupting,
you're just repeating
I'm going to continue to say what I was saying. You're going to just talk over me.
You can say whatever you want to say,
I'm from New Jersey, sir. I have been talked over, believe me. Piers, what I was saying in terms of what the American people voted
don't talk over each other.
as it pertains to January 6th. I was saying something. I mean, I'm not surprised at all that you have no regard for the civilians. Of course, he's just going to talk over me. I was talking.
All right, can you both stop talking, because nobody can understand a word you're saying. So let's just, Brandon, I will come to you to respond. Let Jojo finish her point.
Thank you.
Yes, and then I will come to Brandon.
Thank you very much.
Please don't answer. Please don't
really,
talk over each other. Nobody can hear you. Yeah, when you talk over each other, it's very pleasing for both of you, but nobody else. So Jojo, finish your point.
Thank you very much, because that's exactly what I was doing. I just wanted to pick up on something Geraldo said in terms of what the American people voted for when they voted for Donald Trump as it pertains to the January 6th pardons. And they did not actually support pardoning the most violent insurrectionists that day. Overwhelmingly, they said that they didn't want that. There was, a spectrum related to those who, like the guy who did the cosplay and the cage thing as a January 6th inmate thing, that guy. There was some debate over whether those people should be pardoned.
Jojo,
that was me.
The American people didn't vote for that, Piers. They didn't vote for those pardons.
Hang on, please. The problem is with pardons is that Joe Biden has done what only one president in history has ever done, and that was once. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon preemptively, right? He gave him a preemptive full pardon for any more crimes that may come out. Joe Biden's done it for half his. Joe Biden's done it for half his family, for a bunch of other people. He's given them all preemptive get-out-of-jail-free cards. We don't even know what the potential crimes might have been in the case of his family members. He's so desperate to preemptively pardon. So my point being that when the existing Democrat president abuses the pardon system in such an obviously personally self-interested manner, I don't think you really have the high moral ground on the left to go after Trump on pardons. I'm afraid that ship has sailed.
Piers, if you don't think that pardoning violence is a preemptive pardon for more acts of violence? You don't think that is exactly what you're setting the table for? That you don't think that the message is you commit acts of violence, I'm preemptively pardoning you by showing you that I will pardon you for your acts of violence? It is 100% a preemptive pardon for 1,600 people. Let's just say half of that number were violent. The preemptive pardon there is go ahead and commit acts of violence and I will let you get away with it. So yes, I do understand what you're saying about preemptive pardons and Joe Biden being the only other one since Gerald Ford, but Donald Trump just preemptively pardoned every violent, potentially violent insurrectionist who would commit those acts of violence in his name.
Yeah, all right,
it's a permission structure,
right.
100%.
His Here's the difference. They'd already been in jail for quite considerable periods of time. There's a complete difference between those and those who never went to jail. Brandon, final word to you on this. Brandon?
Right. Well, I'd like to say, I mean, at least the January 6th defendants were charged in the first place. You want to talk about encouraging violence? How about in 2020, the egregious Democrat Party violence of Black Lives Matter that was never even charged in the first place? People burned down buildings, murdered people, beat thousands of police officers, while people like JoJo cheered it on, thought it was the greatest thing that had ever happened. These people weren't even charged with crimes. The January 6th, absolutely you did. The January 6th defendants were treated like terrorists in this country, including people like myself, who were never even accused of violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction. And for many of the people, because we're having this debate about, oh, should the violent people have been pardoned? No one's even taking the time to understand that the Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and Matthew Graves DOJ lied in these cases up and down. And for many people that were accused of violence and forced into a position where they had to take plea deals and say that they committed violence, that in some cases they didn't commit, but in other cases, they were defending themselves from attacks on police officers. They were being shot in the face with rubber bullets, beaten over the head with batons, sprayed with tear gas as they were standing there peacefully, and found themselves in a position where they had to defend themselves. The moment they defended themselves, the DOJ isolated that moment, took it out of context, and said, this person assaulted a police officer. And low IQ, low information people like JoJo believe everything that they heard that was reported in the media. And that's where we are.
They showed up with weapons. It's so weird that they did that.
Final word to Geraldo. Final word to Geraldo.
All I want to say is the pardons were obnoxious. And I think that there is widespread agreement here to that extent. However, what you said, Piers, I think is really what should rule how we feel about it. These people, in terms, and especially when compared to the other guests' reference to the George Floyd riots that really ravaged the country. In the case of the January 6th riots, which changed my life, as I said earlier, ended my friendship with the president, which had gone on for over 40 years. I think that the vast majority of the people pardoned were people who served significant sentences already for these crimes. And crimes they were. And an invasion of the Capitol it was. These people they may have been pardoned, but there is a scar there and a record there, and everybody knows their situation. To some, it's a mark of glory. To others, like me, it is repugnant. And let them live. The person who smashed into the Capitol, the first one and all the rest of them, they are people that, in my view, are fringe players. They did their time. Forget about them. Trump did something we don't agree in terms of the ethics of it, but we do agree with the legality and the constitutionality of it. He was well within his rights. Okay. Let's move on as a country. Let's heal.
It's just good to see your presidents all behaving like a good old-fashioned British king, Geraldo. Great to see you all. Thank you very much indeed. Lara Trump, the daughter-in-law of President Trump, recently announced she'd no longer pursue a political career in the Senate, despite mounting speculation that she may have replaced Marco Rubio in his Florida seat. She stepped down from her role as co-chair of the RNC at the end of last year, but teased an exciting announcement coming this month, potentially suggesting future political aspirations. Lara remains a significant figure in American politics. With her father-in-law back in the White House, let's find out what is next for her from the woman herself. Lara, great to see you.
Hey, Piers, great to be back with you.
Are you ready to make your exciting announcement right now here on Piers Morgan Uncensored?
Do it here. Wow, break some news here. No, I'm not going to do it here. I know, I'm sorry. But it's coming very soon. I think this week I should be able to make the announcement.
So I was thinking of you when I knew we were going to have you back on the show, just about what it must be like for the Trump family, the last 4 years, when you've gone from all the mayhem we were just discussing January the 6th and all the fallout from that, obviously, and for a long period of time after that, it did seem like your father-in-law, President Trump, was politically dead and buried. And then a sort of a remarkable series of events happened. There was the lawfare launched against him, which I thought was a lot of it was completely ridiculous, not least the Stormy Daniels case, which led to him getting a conviction for something most people thought was pathetic. And you saw his poll ratings going up and up and up throughout that whole process. Then you had the assassination attempt, where you will have been watching like the rest of us in utter horror as he came within half an inch of losing his life. Then another attempt at the golf course, which he also survived thanks to the sharp eyes of a Secret Service agent. Then you have the dramatic resignation of Joe Biden, the kind of coronation of Kamala Harris. It was, but for what was being billed at the start of the year as a boring rerun of two old guys duking it out, it became one of the most thrilling election campaigns of all time. But what was it like for you on the inside? As his daughter-in-law, it's not just Donald Trump, the politician. This is your father-in-law.
Yes. No, it's been a wild ride.